As I've mentioned a few times before, Wi-Fi is actually very, very secure. The problem with Wi-Fi security is it can be very difficult to implement. You're really faced with one of two options: really simple security that's not very secure, or really complex, very secure system, but not really usable for a lot of different organizations. So we're going to take a look at some options that we think are a good balance between the two. So we need a little background information first. There's two levels of security today: what's called pre-shared key and 802.1x EAP. Pre-shared key is where every client device and every access point has the same pre-shared key. It's like a password known as a passphrase. It has to be between 8 and 63 characters. Now, you've probably read on the internet somewhere, ooh, that can be cracked. And technically speaking, it can be if it's a very short passphrase, say 12 to 15 characters. If it's very simple, like a word or even a phrase, then yes, it could be cracked. But any really high number, very complex, uppercase, lowercase numbers, cannot be cracked with any length of time today. That may change, but as of right now, a pre-shared key is actually very strong. The weak part of a pre-shared key is the fact that humans have to use it. So let's say you're on a college campus, you've got 10,000 students, and you give all of them the same pre-shared key. Well, guess what? That's not secure anymore. Because if I know the pre-shared key, I can actually crack TKIP and AES. And not because I'm some hacker, but because you can input it into some just the modern packet capture software out there. You can actually put in the pre-shared key, and it will derive the AES key for you. So it provides for very little security in terms of authentication or encryption. So what you're looking for is something that's simple. Pre-shared key is very simple. But when you give it away to a lot of devices, even if you're not college campus, let's say you're in an enterprise corporate environment, and one person gets upset and puts it on their Facebook page, they put the pre-shared key in their Facebook page or tweets it anonymously, and everybody gets upset. What do you do now? Every access point has to be changed, every client device has to be changed. It just doesn't work. The better way to do it is 802.1x. 802.1x, very secure, very proven. You do couple it with a type of EAP, Extensible Authentication Protocol. PEEP is very common. So when you do that, you have a very robust, secure system. But you have to touch every device. You have to have what's called a supplicant. And you have to make sure that certificates are managed. It's really kind of tough for any small to medium business or education facility or organization to maintain a .1x network. It just can be very complicated. So what Ruckus has come up with is, as I mentioned before, a balance between the two, something called Zero IT with something called Dynamic PSK. Dynamic PSK is the pre-shared key security we talked about before, except it's an individual key for each device that is issued by the zone director, not by a human. So every time a device wants to get on the network, it actually gets a different key, a different pre-shared key. Now that is very, very important. Number one, you can't give it away. Even if you did discover what your pre-shared key was, it won't be allowed to be used again. It can only be used on one device. If someone compromises the network, if you gave the key to someone but you don't want them on the network anymore, click one X and they're done. You can block them temporarily or delete them permanently. It's up to you. So the key to this system is also something called Zero IT. Zero IT means zero IT touching. The IT department does not have to touch these devices. Let's go back and use the example of a college campus. On a college campus, students are bringing their own laptops, their own iPads and devices in. What are they to do when they want to secure their network? Normally they would get that pre-shared key that everybody else has that's not really secure. You don't want to be implementing a .1x supplicant on each device. So what Zero IT does is this. More than likely, when a student enrolls, they get a username and password to your back-end authentication system. We're going to use that. What you would do is you would send an email to each student. Inside that email, they're going to, of course, connect first to get that email. They're going to browse to a Zero IT activation URL. They're going to get that in the email. They click on it in that email, and they get this screen that says, enter your credentials. Well, if they're on the network at all and you've already issued it to them, you give them their username and password and they click log in. Once they're authenticated, again, this is can query Active Directory or any other back-end Radius system that you may have. It'll query, and if their credentials pass, it will automatically configure their device with a dynamic pre-shared key. So you didn't have to touch it. It's very, very important. The pre-shared key is bound only to that device and the wireless network automatically until it either expires, which you can preset how long they're good for, or until you decide to turn them off. Let's say it's the end of the school year and you can do a mass delete, just mass delete or mass shutdown of all of those devices. So we've seen 3 security types. Pre-shared key, which is really good for your home network, but doesn't scale well to anything larger. 802.1x, which is really good for a large corporate enterprise, but is very difficult to administer. The balance in between is dynamic pre-shared key with zero IT. It gives you advanced administration, advanced security with the no-touch approach, where you don't have to do anything to configure those devices to get them to be very, very secure.